Hello, good to see you on this Sunday. You are looking live at the streets of Ottawa at this hour. Police now confirming that they have arrested 191 people following weeks of protests. Those are new numbers. They've towed some 57 vehicles. That is Wellington Street. That is now clear of protesters and rigs, as is the case through the downtown core. People have either been arrested, towed, or have left of their own volition. The police action came, though, after 3 weeks of protests blockading streets in downtown Ottawa and after the federal government took the unprecedented step of invoking the Emergencies Act, introducing new powers to crack down on the protests. Critics say the move was unnecessary, that the new measures go too far. The Minister of Emergency Preparedness, Bill Blair, is here this morning to discuss all of that. Nice to see you, Minister.
Good morning, Rosemary.
So as a former police officer and the Minister of Emergency Preparedness, how have you viewed what's unfolded in the nation's capital this weekend?
Actually, I've watched with admiration. I think the police clearly had a well-developed plan. They approached their responsibilities in a measured and proportionate way, and they've been effective. I think certainly the people of Ottawa are very grateful for the intervention. I also want to take the opportunity, Rosemary, to thank police officers who gave up their time from their families and their own communities to travel to Ottawa to provide assistance. And I know that's it's a difficult job they're doing for us out there, but by everything I've seen so far, they've done it very well.
I will ask you if you have any concerns about how police push back on the crowd, only because we're getting confirmation that the Special Investigations Unit is investigating 2 incidents. One where there was a horse that came near, knocked down a woman. That happened on Rideau Street, and another with the Vancouver Police Department officers disengaged in what's called an anti-riot weapon. Would any of that be concerning to you, given that there is now an investigation? Does that seem unusual, both of those uses of force?
First of all, Rosemary, I'm not going to comment on any ongoing police operation. We're very fortunate in this country, and certainly in the province of Ontario, in that there is, rigorous civilian oversight, an independent complaints review system. I respect those institutions and the work that they will do. That's their job. And the police always know that they will be held to account for the way in which they uphold their duties and enforce the law, and the force that they may use is also subject to scrutiny. That's the way the system works. The police understand that.
Yeah. So just so people watching over the past couple of days understand, it as you know, nothing was happening for 3 weeks, and then we saw action, and action actually quite quickly by police. What part of what we have seen unfold was because of the Emergencies Act, in your view?
Well, I would rely on Interim Chief Bell, who was explicit and clear in his news report, that when he said that the measures that were provided to law enforcement through the Emergencies Act have been essential, critical in their success and their ability to do their job, to restore the rule of law and order to the city of Ottawa. Also, a number of those measures allowed, for example, tow trucks to come in and remove those trucks, and the presence of those trucks was really anchoring that protest. Mm-hmm. And so I believe the measures, regretfully that they were required, but we said at the outset, we will do what is required, and we will only do it as long as it is required. But I think clearly, and the evidence from the police overwhelmingly, is that those measures have in fact been effective and are helping them resolve the situation.
So how do you judge how long they are needed? Obviously, there will be a vote on the implementation tomorrow. There's a natural expiry date of 30 days. But if the concern here is, according to your government, that this could continue in different places throughout the country, how do you judge when the Emergencies Act is no longer needed?
Yeah, Rosemary, we're tracking it hourly. I had a briefing earlier this morning with Commissioner of the RCMP. We're looking at what has been done, what is left to be done. We have said and made a commitment to Canadians that we brought forward these measures reluctantly because they were necessary. But they would only be in place and only where they are required for as long as is necessary. And we're tracking very carefully. And when the situation is sufficiently resolved that the police can go back to relying on their existing authorities and municipal bylaws, highway traffic acts, provincial legislation, and the criminal code, we will withdraw these measures. But we're tracking very carefully. They will only be in place as long as they are needed to get the job done.
You, as part of the justification for the Emergencies Act, members of the government, including yourself, have pointed to what happened in Coutts, Alberta, the large cache of weapons there. The interim chief of the police services here yesterday said that they believe there were some weapons, not clear on what kind. I wonder if you can tell us anything about the potential for discovery of weapons or things that may have been more serious.
First of all, the police are always concerned about the presence of weapons and the potential for violence in a crowd situation for the safety of the officers, but also for the safety of the people involved in the protest. But I will also tell you, Rosemary, it's not appropriate for me to comment on any matter of intelligence or evidence, any matter that could eventually be put before the court as a minister of the Crown. I'm very mindful of my responsibility to be respectful of those processes and will be. But I do understand the police are being exceptionally vigilant and careful and cautious, and they're doing their job. And we've done our best to supply them with the tools they need and to assist them in doing that job because it's important for the entire country.
The Premier, Jason Kenney, as you probably heard there off the top, now says that Alberta will launch a court challenge of the Emergencies Act. He says it was, quote, unnecessary and disproportionate, that it infringes on provincial jurisdiction. What would be your response to that claim from the Premier?
Well, frankly, I wouldn't even want to begin to explain the Premier's motives for that, but I will point out that on February 5th, his province wrote to us, urging us to provide them with assistance in dealing with the situation at Coutts. They said that the situation exceeded all of the authorities that they currently had available to them. In particular, they pointed out their difficulty in getting tow trucks. They urged us, they made a plea to us to please help. We did. We helped and we responded. The measures worked and have been effective. What the Premier chooses to do thereafter is entirely up to him. We were responding not just to Alberta, by the way, but we heard the same pleas from across the country, and particularly in Ontario, so we responded as required.
Are you suggesting that the Premier's motivations are more political than legal?
No, I'm not going to just speculate on the Premier's motives. I would just point out that on February 5th, they wrote to us urging us to provide federal assistance and to take extraordinary measures to deal with the situation they did not have the ability to deal with. We listened and we responded. We responded very proportionally to what they were asking, and I'll leave it to the Premier to make his case thereafter.
The debate is continuing inside the House of Commons right now on the motion on the Emergencies Act, the vote tomorrow. We are expecting the Conservatives to vote against it, certainly, and the Bloc. What does the past 3 weeks and that debate tell you, Minister, about the state of our country? Are you concerned about how we move forward? Certainly this is not all of Canada that was represented at this protest, but there is a minority of people who feel this way and are concerned about the direction of things. How do you deal with that as a government?
Well, first of all, Rosemary, let me say the fact that there has been a vigorous debate taking place in Parliament and that it'll come to a vote in our democratically elected House of Commons tomorrow, and it'll also go before the Senate, by the way. The fact that that's happening, to me, is an affirmation that our democracy is strong. And the laws that were brought forward, and frankly by a Conservative government for the Emergency Act, were carefully crafted to ensure that there was, first of all, that it remained charter compliant, that the rule of law was always respected, and that there would be appropriate parliamentary oversight. And so I think that demonstrates the strength of our country. But I think to your larger point, we have seen division in this country, and I think diversity of opinion and perspective is one of the great things about Canada, but we've seen that also now devolve into, I think some inappropriate and even unlawful actions, which have been hurtful to individuals, to communities, and to the country. And so I think we all have to reflect now on how we come forward from that. But I'm frankly, Rosemary, as I said to you last week, as a government, I think we have an obligation. Every order of government has a responsibility to the safety and security of their citizens. I think we acted responsibly and proportionally. Quite frankly, we approached the use of these measures, with great caution and some regret, but it was clear that it was necessary. And I think the evidence that we've seen and the actions that have taken place over the past several days, provide ample evidence that this was in fact necessary, that it works. And we're hearing very clearly from the law enforcement community that the tools they had available to them were insufficient to respond. We provided additional supports, and that it's having the positive effect of bringing this matter to a peaceful end. The issues underlying them, I think, still need to be addressed by all of us as a country, but restoring the rule of law and peace in our communities was critically important for the people of Ottawa and for the country.
Okay, Minister Blair, good of you to make the time again on this Sunday. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks so much, Rosemary.
Have a good day.